All right, guys, I'm here with Nuka Solomon, who is the CEO of Free Wheelchair Mission. Welcome to the show, Nuka. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I know your mission is kind of described in your organization's name, but can you tell me a little bit about what Free Wheelchair Mission does?
Well, we do a lot, but most importantly, we partner with like-minded organizations to give out free wheelchairs to the poor in developing countries. And we have been in 94 countries since our founding 21 years ago. And we currently have over 50 distribution partners that help us to do that work. Our wheelchairs are very unique. They are what we call cost-effective, which means that they're not overly expensive in the way that they're made, but they're extremely well made and durable so that they can withstand the rigors of the developing world, from things like wars or natural disasters. The terrain that needs to be covered with these wheelchairs needs to be very unique, very different than what you would find in the United States or Europe. And we basically are a nonprofit. We work to fundraise and do that humanitarian work.
You mentioned fundraising. I know that Free Wheelchair Mission partners with a lot of different corporations to fundraise and achieve your mission. So can you maybe share some examples of some of the corporations you work with and how exactly they partner with you?
Oh, sure. So we have small businesses, large corporations, local, across the nation that give back to us. Most of them either come to give to us because our mission aligns with their core CSR values, corporate social responsibility values, or they're introduced to us because the CEO or a leader in that company has been giving to us personally, and they engage their workplace. So we've had some companies give to us where they plan to go on a distribution trip, and so they donate a container worth of wheelchairs, which is about 500 wheelchairs in a container, so that they can encourage their executives not just to be philanthropically minded, but also to go out and give out the wheelchairs. We have a great company called Right at Home that has done that. They actually are in the work of assisted living, so there is a link, obviously, to wheelchairs there. That's one example. We have companies like In-N-Out Burger that sponsor our annual event. And so I think that's a company that's very much a philanthropically minded company, but also understands the value proposition of being associated with an event that has a lot of attendees that are their customers, whether it be virtually or in person. We have other companies that get involved at the foundation level. A lot of companies have foundations now, so you have to apply to them like you used to in the old days of private foundation. So we have tons of companies that do that, but mostly it's a year-round thing. Right now we have our month of May Move for Mobility campaign, which is an initiative where we encourage people all over the world really to get off their chairs and get up and move and be active and fundraise for us. And we have some companies that are encouraging their employees to do that or just cutting a check to support a team. But overall, there's lots of different ways that people can get involved and get engaged at the corporate level.
That's amazing. I love that you mentioned specifically that you're not just working with giant corporations, you can also work with small businesses. So you are working with this wide range of different types of for-profit businesses to support your work. But I'm wondering, with these huge companies that you mentioned, like this residential care community and In-N-Out Burger, I mean, everyone's heard of In-N-Out Burger. How do you actually get how do you get through that first door to start talking with In-N-Out Burger about how they can support your mission?
Like everything else in the world, it's who you know. And it really helps to have a champion. And that's an example where we have a champion, meaning a supporter of ours who introduced us to that company because they know an executive there. So in a lot of the cases of companies where we need to get our foot in the door, whether it be a company like Pyology, which is another major company that helped us by allowing for us to have sort of like a little table to showcase our work, but then also gave us a percentage of the revenue that they got from the meals or the drinks that they sold. That was another introduction from somebody that we knew. Sometimes we go in sort of cold, but the majority of the time it's through an introduction, which is why I always say it's really important to ally yourself with your board of directors or your councils, or just your generous givers with people that have those kind of contacts or who represent multiple different sectors of business. So you get that variety of opportunity, not just from them giving to personally, but from them then exponentially allowing for more gifts to be given.
So, okay, let's say I have a nonprofit, I have a board of directors of 10 people.
Mhm.
Do I just go to this board and just say like, all right, guys, here's a piece of paper, write down all the influential people you know who you're going to introduce me to? Like, how do you start that conversation, right?
That's one way. I do that with my board. So I have my development team create a list. We have a list going right now. We try it every year, and sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not, where we come up with we call it a hit list or a prospect list of companies and the contact people, meaning who's the local highest ranking at the large company or who's the small business owner. And we pass the sheet around the old fashioned way. And we ask everybody on the board, who do you know? And sometimes they don't know anybody. Sometimes they know somebody who might know someone. So there, it starts there. But sometimes it's just making sure that when you're seeking people on your board, that you have a variety of different individuals. A lot of times when you want people to be key volunteers to you, you want to make sure you can capitalize on their time. And people that are really busy in a company setting or really in that most aggressive time of their professional career may not have the time to serve and be as active of a board member. So you do have to have a balance of some potential retirees or some people that don't work and they work from home or they have more of a flexibility. So I'm not saying everybody on your board needs to work for a company, but having a few people like that is key. And then sometimes it's not them, it's their children, it's their neighbor, it's their spouse or their partner who may be associated with that company. And sometimes it's not a direct ask, it's a sleepy ask. I call it like an indirect sleepy ask, which is you work at a company and your company has a company match. And you want to support this organization, but you can't afford to give them $1,000. You can afford to give them $500. But your company has a one-to-one match. You could have your company match that gift, and now instantly it's turned into $1,000. You don't have to make a hard ask of your boss or the CSR manager and convince them to give to that organization. It's part of their value proposition with their employees that they match. And lots of companies do it. It's just something that people don't always take advantage of. So I encourage people to look at that with their board members or their volunteers or their donors and ask, yes, we want you to give us a check, but do you know if your company has a corporate matching program? So that's definitely another great resource, and it's kind of an easy donation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is something that a lot of people don't know about unless you directly ask them. They don't know that their company might offer that matching gift opportunity. So I
Exactly.
love that. So I think with board members, it is expected. I don't think this, I said I think, but this is something I know. It is expected among board members that they take part in the development and fundraising process.
Mhm.
But what about when you're asking people who maybe it's not their direct responsibility to help you fundraise, to make a connection to a corporation? So like you have a major donor who must be well connected because they're high up in their company or whatever. How do you approach that person and say, who are some connections that you have who could benefit Free Wheelchair Mission?
One thing I know about people is everybody wants to be helpful and they want to feel needed. It's one thing to feel needed when somebody asks you for money. That can be a little bit uncomfortable to either have to tell somebody, I want to feel needed, but I don't have the money to give you, or I gave all my money away to this other entity. Or it could be uncomfortable for the asker, whether the asker is a professional fundraiser. Sometimes it's awkward and stressful, or a volunteer that you're asking, as you said, a board member that you're asking to make the ask. But in order to feel needed, you don't just have to be asked to give money, it's to make an introduction. I was just telling one of my development team members this the other day, and they were challenged because one of their supporters had said, I'm really unable to give to this year because I've directed my funds to something else that really needs my efforts and my charity. And so I'm going to potentially give to next year. And she felt like she had hit a wall and she wanted to know how to continue to engage that individual. And I told her the same thing. Everybody wants to feel needed. So what you could do is say, I understand, but I was really counting on your donation this year. Maybe you can help me. I could really use your help. And they're going to say, what is it? And you say, it's not a donation, it's an introduction. Do you know of anybody that could potentially help me to get my foot in the door here? Or do you know of somebody who potentially has a company with a group of employees that may want an opportunity to volunteer? Or do you know anybody that is part of a foundation, or whatever the ask is, but it's more about an introduction, but casing it and framing it in a way that you're saying to them, I need your help, and it's also, you also understand what the value is of our mission. We're trying really hard to introduce other people to that. And the only way for us to be successful is for more and more people to hear about what we do. So that's what has caused us to be successful over the years, is this introduction. So we would love it if you would help us out. That's one way to look at it. Other than that, it's really already knowing who they know and specifically saying to them, will you introduce me to John in your country club or so-and-so in this business? I think you may have him as a client.
Yeah. Yeah. So my last question for you, Nuka. So let's say I've got the introduction to the company. They've given In-N-Out Burger has sponsored free wheelchair missions event. How do you steward relationships with those corporations that have supported you so they continue to support you year after year?
People want to see a return on their investment. And so the best way to do that is to demonstrate to them how their contribution made a difference. I think that's where having a strong marketing team who is working really hard to give you those impact stories as a development or fundraising officer to then share back with the donating company. So first and foremost, obviously they want to see their logo everywhere, the thank you note written, and obviously the hope is that everybody's doing that, right? You're thanking them right away for the gift. You're sending them that letter besides the formality of the tax receipt, but sharing with them a story, sharing with them a video, sharing with them some imagery associated with how their gift made a difference is critical. And then if there's an opportunity to have some branding associated with that so that then they could share it with their channels, whether that be their employees, their clients, that's a win. We've done it a few times. We did it with a company called Loan Depot, where we created a video. We had one of their executives, who's a key volunteer and leader within our organization, do a video and talk about why Loan Depot is selecting Free Wheelchair Mission as a corporate partner. So it's our way of kind of thanking them to showcase their philanthropic support that has been significant, but it's also a way for them to flex their muscles and to say, here we are, we have been successful this financial year, and here's where we gave our money, and here's why. And so we help them to produce that video, or they do it on their own. And then it has their branding, it has our branding, and it's a win-win for them and us. We've done that several times with them and others. And we try to promote them on social media a little bit. We don't go overboard with it because we want to maintain the integrity of our humanitarian work. But as much as possible, we'll post, a select company or individual that is associated with the company in our Instagram stories or on LinkedIn. We'll showcase and reshare their posts about us as much as possible. And whenever we have our major event, there's lots of co-branding opportunities depending on the levels of giving. So we make sure to have that be a win for them too.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I love the video idea because This reminds me of a nonprofit that in their annual report, they would, highlight how their biggest corporate sponsors would partner directly with them to support their mission, which I love because then you have this piece of collateral that you can then bring to other prospective corporate partners and be like, look how we spotlighted this
Mhm.
company. Like you said, Loan Depot, look how we spotlighted them. And we would really love to partner with you in a similar way. Then you're
Mhm.
not directly like promising, we're going to get you 5 million video views or whatever, but you're offering them, you are showing them that you are in good faith, like partnering with their company and helping them to receive value in return. So I love
Exactly.
that. Well, Nuka, this has been fabulous talking with you. How can listeners go and find out more about Free Wheelchair Mission? And most importantly, I think for my listeners, how can they see examples of your awesome marketing online?
Very proud of our website. Our website URL is freewheelchairmission.org. We've gotten lots of compliments about the quality of our imagery and how much we are sharing our story. And most importantly, that we're transparent about what we do, how we really invest donors' money. So I really encourage people to visit our site and to just check out our different social media channels, whether it be on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. We have a different leaning on each of those different channels. Some things are more geared to the person who wants that really heartwarming image of our work, and others are more geared towards campaign or things that are more specific to the humanitarianism. And then lastly, of course, it's about those businesses and how they could be connected to us and what the value is for a company to think outside of the revenue they're trying to earn every day, but also thinking about those that are in need. And I encourage people to just think about giving. I mean, with us, we make it really simple. We say one wheelchair is less than $100 and you can transform a life. So for $96, if you give a donation or you split it up over time, and so that by the end of the year, you've given a wheelchair, you're really transforming a life. We make it very, very easy for people to understand and really appreciate really the hope that we're trying to provide and the opportunity we're trying to provide for somebody to be able to work in a company, go to school, and be integrated in their family and their communities differently than if they didn't have that check.
Yeah, one more thing I want to mention before you go, Nuka, because this was something I asked you before. When you say $96 buys a wheelchair, you are not just talking about the materials that go into the wheelchair. You're also breaking down all the costs associated with making that wheelchair, which includes overhead, which includes your staff's time, right?
And the
Because
shipping.
yes, none of that. The wheelchair is not going to have the outcome that you want it to have without all of those pieces combined. And so I love that you are not shy about saying this is the true cost of what it takes to
Mhm.
have the outcome that we want to have with our mission. So
Exactly.
yeah, so I love that you do that. Thank you so much. Well, listeners and viewers, I'm going to put the link to Free Wheelchair Mission's website wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast right now. Thank you so much, Nuka. I appreciate your time.
Really appreciate you having me.